Welcome to another edition of Altitude Advantage on Dub Day after the Carolina Panthers were defeated by the Denver Broncos 28-14. I'm your team reporter and host, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table from me is our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. And we have a very special guest in the building. We're going to give her all the attention, but Aric, I'm going to let you do the intro for that one.
We have our lovely digital content contributor, Susanna Weir.
Happy to be here.
Okay, first lesson of podcast, Suze, you got to talk into the mic.
Happy to be here.
And longer than 2 seconds.
There you go. Look at that. Okay, well, you saw her. She's here. I like the hat, Elisa. Went back to the team store.
Actually, this is from my LA Broncos days when I would just buy, when I would see Broncos gear in LA and I'd just have to have it because, you know, it's not there.
Yeah.
It's not
I know
there.
the team store hate to see you coming.
They do. So was my credit card. Sad. Well, one thing we do love to see coming is the Broncos improving at home. They were able to get the win yesterday. They're actually 3-0 against NFC South teams because they defeated the Bucs and then defeated the Saints. Then they went ahead and defeated the Panthers. So off to a good start. But it was interesting to go into the locker room and kind of see the vibes in there. And we would hear from head coach Sean Payton on Monday to kind of, you know, elaborate on why that was. But after you've seen the game 24 hours later, we always check in with you because you tend to have a different eye there. When you've been able to digest the game 24 hours later, even after a win.
Yeah, I think it was a good performance, 28-14, obviously. The game was never really in doubt after the Broncos tied it up. And obviously a little bit of a scare early where you have the turnover, the Panthers score, go up 7-0, and it feels like is this going to be one that you have to grind out? But a big special teams play. Susanna wrote a great article on DenverBroncos.com, cover 4, about the turning point of the game. I think we both agreed that it was that down punt inside the 1-yard line. The Broncos get a stop. They score. And after that, things clicked. Yeah. Now, I will say, even though it was a win that the Broncos rolled to, there were still plenty of missed opportunities. And I think that's where, when you listen to Sean Payton, when you listen to guys inside the locker room, this should have been a much more convincing win, whether it was the turnovers. I mentioned the one early in the game. Courtland Sutton lost a fumble at the 1-yard line late in the game. Broncos defense gives up a late touchdown. So instead of 35-7, which probably feels closer to what this game should have been based on the way that it unfolded, right, you're looking at 28-14. I think there is a standard now, and I love this. I think it's great because at times over the last 7-8 years, any win has been considered good, or like that's an accomplishment, and still an accomplishment to get a win. But I think Sean Payton has set this standard that there are times where you've got to do more than just win. You've got to win a certain way, or you've got to win without turnovers, or you've got to win without giving up a late score. And so they want more. They have higher expectations than a 14-point win over the Panthers. And listen, Sean Payton was very blunt after the game. We're going to play better teams than this. We're going to play bigger games than this. We're going to face better offenses than this. And so the Broncos have to find a way. Even after a win, this feels in a lot of ways like a game that you come out of and you're like, we're not satisfied at all. And certainly if you want to beat Baltimore on the road, I think the last time I checked, Baltimore's an early 9.5-point favorite. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to play a lot better than you did against the Panthers. And for me, that's encouraging because it gives guys something to work toward this week. There's not going to be any, like, we're satisfied, we're resting on our laurels. Like, they're going to be ready to go because it's clear that this is not up to the standard that they want to play at. Yeah,
Jonathan Cooper stressed that, saying that he was disappointed at the fact that they weren't able to start fast. They gave up that touchdown to start the game, and then they gave up that late touchdown towards the end of the game. And he's like, we can't start or finish that way because that's not a recipe for success. But he acknowledged and like echoed what Sean Payton was saying in the sense like we're going to play better teams that are going to take advantage of that are going to try to really get you off balance to score more often, especially when you kind of give those takeaways here and there. So they did have some good moments. Obviously, we saw Nick Bonito get another sack. He's been really consistent over the last couple of weeks. So there are some bright spots. I think you had mentioned it on the podcast before that in wins, you know, it's kind of hard to see what you need to work on. And then in losses, it's kind of hard to see what you did well. So this was an interesting win because there was a lot of things you can kind of take from either side of that stick.
Yeah, and I don't mean to suggest there weren't good plays. Like Bo Nix played the best game of his career. Yeah. He was very impressive. He hit these dig routes. He hit an over route to Courtland Sutton. He put the ball on the money down the seam for Adam Troutman, who made an impressive catch. The tight ends came up big on National Tight Ends Day.
Hey, You got to take a moment for that.
Is National Tight Ends Day, is it the same day every year?
Yes. I think it's the last Sunday or something.
It's the fourth Sunday of October.
Ooh, look at Sue's.
I don't know if she talked loud enough for it to capture it.
There you go. Now, Sue, say that again.
It's the fourth Sunday of October.
You know what? She's like our stats. Oh, you got a new assistant.
Hand the game book over to Sue's here.
Exactly.
So the tight ends played well. Jaquan McMillan made a really impressive interception where he watched the receiver put his hands up and then spun, jumped, and intercepted it all at once. Surtain gets another interception. So there were bright spots, but I think you're right that you come out of this thinking like what could have been. Should we have beaten this team by more? Could we have started faster? It's now the fourth home game in a row that the Broncos have been down at least a score early. They still have not scored a point in the first quarter at home this year. So there are things that still have to be better. But I think it says something about the Broncos as a team and where they are that this is the mindset. Because coming into this year, we didn't know what to think about this team. Certainly nationally, there were low expectations externally. And the Broncos are now 5-3 and at a point where they're playing a team that is not competitive. I think the Panthers are 1-7 now.
Yes.
And the Broncos win by 14 points and they're still not happy. Like that says something about where this team is, because if you were a 2-6 football team, right, and you beat the Panthers, like you're probably just happy that you got a win. And they'd be like, oh, we took a step forward, we earned a win. But no, this team has, it seems like, bigger aspirations than that. They're firmly in the postseason mix. As we record this, the Broncos are the 5th seed in the AFC. They're actually ahead of Baltimore in the playoff standings right now because of tiebreakers. But
that feels good to say right now. That feels good to say. Given that Baltimore's coming off of that loss to the Browns, Jameis Winston getting that last-second win over them. So it's going to be an interesting matchup to kind of see how they're able to recover next week.
And they'll be mad. They'll want to turn. I mean, Lamar was angry. He threw his helmet coming off the field. Like they are not going to be pleasant to play against. But it's a good test. It's a bigger game. It shows you where you stack up. So obviously we'll talk a lot more about that as we move forward. But I just think, we talked about those buckets of games, right? Like the games you can steal, the games that are toss-ups, and the games you should win. The Broncos have won those games you should win, but they also now, there's like I don't want to say like a style element, but there's just a standard of how do you play against those teams that you should beat. Like it's not just about at this point
getting by,
beating the Panthers or getting by, right? And Sean Payton said, we've got to continue to improve. If you're not, like, let's go. Let's get going here, because that's what it's going to take to beat Baltimore. That's what it's going to take to beat Kansas City. You've got a better Cleveland team coming in here in a few weeks. You've got the Bengals down the stretch who still have a really good offense despite some defensive struggles. So the Broncos, and I saw this stat, I think 11 combined wins among the teams that they've beaten so far. And granted, I think 11-29 is the stat. Granted, that's because the Broncos have beaten them. So if the Broncos had lost, then all of a sudden the record looks better, right? So I always find that stat kind of funny.
Yeah.
But they're about to take a step up in terms of the quality of opponent they face. And so they've got to get better. I like the mindset. And we always talk about, like, you celebrate a win for 24 hours, but it feels like almost the Broncos were kind of done with this one as soon as they left the locker room. And then it's like, let's get ready for Baltimore.
Yeah, it was definitely the same vibe, ironically, when they lost to the Chargers, and they were kind of like, look, it's over, it's done, we're moving on. And given that this was a win, it was interesting to kind of see that mindset. But you do understand it once you get the context of what they were talking about. And like you said, wanting to kind of win and be more dominant in this game versus a team that had been struggling coming into it. But a quick shout out, a quick spotlight to our tight ends because it was National Tight Ends Day. And Adam Troutman actually after the game said, it's crazy that out of all the days, today is the day that we had, 2 tight ends score. Him being one of them with the one-handed catch, which was really impressive. But Nate Atkins, we have to give shout out and some love to him because he got his first NFL career touchdown on Sunday. And a fun fact, he said that Saturday night his brother had a dream, told him that he had a dream that he was going to score a touchdown on Sunday. And so,
why didn't he do that earlier?
Yeah, Dad got to talk to his brother about that. Brothers, there's competition there. So probably fine. He was like, all right, this is my dream for you. But he said he was talking to his brother on Saturday.
Dream about that last year.
He said that he was talking to his brother on Saturday. And then look, it's all about coming to fruition. So they did ask him what he was going to do with the football. And he It was kind of funny. He was just like, well, maybe when I have a house or an office, it'll go in there. But for now, it's just going to live in my locker.
Troutman said that?
No, Nate Adkins said that. Yeah, after the game yesterday, which I think is funny because that's a good motivation. You see your first touchdown, your first football from your first touchdown. It gives you motivation to want to get more, right?
It was a good catch.
It was a good catch. Both the tight ends had really good catches.
Yeah, Lucas Kroll made a play later in the game. It was more production than the Broncos had from their tight ends all season. I think Troutman on his first catch, the catch and run, it was like 37 yards. It was more yards than he'd had all season, I believe. So it speaks to where the tight end production was, but it also shows, and I like this from Sean, he said this Friday, so after we recorded our preview show, but there's a way to win every game. Yeah. And he said even if you play a team that looks like, you know, they're just way out of your league or just a dominant team, there's always a way to win a game. And he said he learned that from Bill Parcells. And sometimes it's harder to find that way than others, but clearly the Broncos in this game saw a path throwing the football down the field, throwing it in the middle of the field, tight ends in particular, and giving themselves a chance to capitalize there. I mean, Bo threw for 220 yards in the first half. Yeah. They really shut it. There's this chatter, right, that the Broncos were running up the score via fake field goal, pass from Cortland Sutton to Michael Burton. Sean Payton said, listen, we're trying to close the game. We're trying to finish the game. We're only up 21 points. Teams have lost leads before.
We saw in Sunday alone how many teams were able to come back and almost win. The Colts being one of them against the Texans. The Browns actually beating the Ravens. And I believe there was one more that kind of went chaotic towards the end.
The Cowboys came close to coming back against the Niners.
Yeah, it's like you can.
Suze, do you have another one?
Oh.
Nope, that was the one I was going to say.
Ah, okay.
Sorry.
Why you take it from her?
Apologies.
Sheesh. No, but I'm saying he has a point because this is the National Football League and this can turn on a dime very quickly. And there is a sense of putting teams away because when you get too comfortable, look at the Bears Washington Commanders game. You had one defender not even paying attention on the Hail Mary. It's like you always have to stay locked in.
That's the funniest clip I've ever seen him play. He's standing there with his arms crossed. I feel bad for him because he's obviously now dealing with the
chatter,
with the Twitter. But man,
he's pumping up the crowd though. Did you see that?
I don't know if he was pumping them up. I think he was talking trash.
Probably that too.
But man, it's a funny photo.
Yeah, it is. It is. And after the game, he tweeted out that he apologized. He realized he has to stay locked in. But that ties into the fact that you cannot. Sometimes that notion tends to get me a little kind of my antennas coming out. It's there's no running the score unless you're up 50-0. But when the game is in a 2-possession game, even 3-possession game, anything can happen, especially if you have a lot of time left in the game.
The Broncos lost 70-20 last year and did not come off the field and say the Dolphins were running the score up.
Speak on it.
And so, this is, it's kind of silly, and it feels like Sean Payton also feels like it's silly that we're talking about this. He's like, listen, we're just trying to win the football game. We're trying to put it away. Why would you want to put your defense back on the field? That's why you're going for it on fourth down, run the clock out more. Exactly. And I also think there's a benefit to continuing to get Bo reps in these situations, get Cortland his 100-yard game. I mean, find that rhythm.
And a perfect passer rating. Can I just say that?
For Cortland.
Yeah, for Court.
Yeah.
He actually
not in this one, but overall, I think he's 3 for 3 in his career, so he's pretty good. Bo Nix said he's coming for his job. But so anyway, that kind of whole thing was a little silly to me. But the Broncos did shut it down a little bit in the second half. Bo only threw 10 times. Like I said, 220 yards in the first half. He could have easily thrown for over 300 if the team kept the pedal down there. Yeah. Ended up with 284, a career best, career high in completions, career high in passing touchdowns, career high in passer rating, yards per attempt. He became the first Broncos quarterback ever to throw 3 touchdowns, run for a touchdown without an interception.
Wow.
And people were like, oh, John Elway did that. No, he didn't. People are funny on Twitter. They're like, you're wrong.
Do they not know you're an encyclopedia? Do they not know?
Thank you, bot 6275. I appreciate it. Thank you for telling me.
Oh, Suze, he found your burner.
Yeah. Suze, stay off Twitter. But yeah, he did that. There are 4 quarterbacks since 1970, 4 rookies that have thrown for 8 touchdowns and run for 4 touchdowns through their first 8 games. Yeah. And it's Bo, Cam Newton, RG3, and Dak.
Yeah. I mean,
that's pretty good company there. All 3 of those guys won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
I know Jaden Daniels is playing really well, but you look at Bo from October, he's first in touchdowns, he's tied for first in wins, tied for first in yards, all those among rookie quarterbacks. And he's playing well. And so that was one of the more encouraging things from this game. And I think as you look forward to these better teams, you're going to need Bo to have these games where he can throw for 250 plus or beat you through the air. We still haven't seen a ton of Bo having to work in the 2-minute drill, like down just one score. And so I'll be interested to see how he does in that situation. But so much of this, his rookie year, is like, what can he do as a rookie? How does he build? And he definitely took his biggest step yet against the Panthers.
Yeah, it's interesting. You come back to the start of this season when they started 0-2, and then now you look back and they won 5 of their last 6 games, improved to 2-2 at home.
What did we tell people to do, Elisa? Way back then, what did we tell them? Suze, what did we tell them to do?
Be patient.
And
Suze isn't listening to the podcast, apparently. Bad luck. We said relax.
Relax.
Everybody just calm down.
Yeah, calm down, relax. He did the, just calm down. But it's true. You look, you improved to 2-2 at home, 5-3 overall. A big focus this week was winning at home and not overlooking this matchup because we've seen teams come in. Again, I had spoken to Hall of Famer Steve Atwater, who mentioned some of these games you want to make sure that you don't make stars out of anyone. And sometimes these games can get away from you, and then this player that not many have heard about will come out and have a dominant game. That's not what he wanted this team to go through, and that's not what happened on Sunday. Thankfully, they really were able to put the pressure completely on Carolina, and I mean, you kind of saw the struggles on that side of the ball. So,
It's Steve's birthday.
It is Steve's birthday.
Happy birthday, Steve.
Happy birthday, Steve.
We should have brought Steve on.
I know. Well, and then Suze. Well, we do have a 4th mic, so Suze can always come. The 4th mic is over here. We just don't use it.
It's true.
It's lonely. Well, anyways,
Let's go sit over there.
Well, again, happy birthday to our Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater. We hope that he's celebrating, today with his family.
He's posting on Instagram. He's an Instagram machine now.
He is. Make sure you guys follow Steve on Instagram.
What's his Instagram?
I have to look it up. It's I think because he has 2, but one's like the real one. The other one, I think he made it and then just forgot about it, so he made another one. So I think it's like Steve Atwater 27, or there's an underscore in there. Suze, look that up. But yes, he did post his first story yesterday, and then he reposted my story of him signing an autograph for a fan. So he, he's all over the gram.
Tech savvy.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, he made a point to not overlook matchups like this, and thankfully the Broncos didn't do that. Suze, do we have an Instagram?
Steve Atwater 27.
The one with no underscore. Thanks, Suze. But yeah, so it's interesting when you kind of look at this team now, 5-3. You had mentioned it on Monday's podcast that getting a win, you kind of separate yourself a little bit, so you kind of buy yourself some time if you manage to get or happen to get a loss in this back-to-back road trip, because it is going to be a tough stretch for this team against 2 good defenses and then a division rival.
Yeah, you're about to find out where you stack up, and certainly you're going to be underdogs both weeks. There's no question about that. I think this is a chance for this team to really prove kind of what they can be this year. It doesn't even mean that you have to go win both games by any means. I'm excited to see how they stack up. How do they play? Can you keep it close? Can you put yourself in position to win these games? And obviously 1-score games can go either way, but like if the Broncos can find a way to make these 1-score games, and maybe they have a lot of success and maybe they win by more than 1 score. Like maybe they don't even need to do that, but like this is going to be a tough stretch. So I'm excited to see how the Broncos do. And the birthday boys rolling in. It's your birthday. You can show up whenever you want.
That's true. Yes. So for those of you that are listening to the podcast, we're in this room, but there is a window that you kind of see the elevator, and we just saw.
That's where the fans normally stand.
Yeah, and
Steve just walked by.
Steve just walked by and distracted Aric. It was awesome.
But this Baltimore game, it's going to be tough, but this is what you play for, right? Is to have these games. You're both 5-3. Jim Nance and Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson are on the call. Like this is a big game, and this is why this is what you want. And a great chance for Bo Nix, I think, to show everybody what he's all about. Chance for this defense to face Lamar and Derrick Henry. It's going to be their biggest test of the season so far. Show what you're about as a defense. And so I'm excited for this. But you're right, getting to 5-3, this was a win that you needed, and they got it. And it wasn't perfect, but it was also relatively stress-free. I think we talked after being 2-2, the Broncos need to find a way to win 3 of the next 4. they did that. You're on pace, quote unquote, to be where you want to be at the end of the season. Probably still need to find a way to get. Oh, we got the Hoff breaking in.
Yeah.
What up?
You know, talking to the mic, Steve.
You got time to the mic. Susan's mic works.
Hello.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Steve.
Thank you, man. I'm getting old.
No such thing.
I'm gonna start each birthday now. I think from this point on, I'm gonna count. I'm just gonna take birthdays every 3 years.
Okay, Steve.
What?
So yeah. So when I turn 60, I'm actually gonna be 57. I'm gonna say 57. I'm 58 today.
Happy birthday, Steve.
Happy birthday to the legend in the building.
Thank you guys so much.
Came in.
Much love.
Steve,
Much love.
what'd you think about yesterday, Steve? You like it?
It was dominant. I like that, especially these two games we got coming up here with the Ravens and the Chiefs. We got to have some good momentum going into those games. Got to have the confidence level high. And, hey, we can do anything.
These are big ones. Chance to show what you're all about these next 2 weeks.
I will say the fans were like, "Where's Steve? How come Steve hasn't been on the podcast?" Look, you ask and you shall receive.
We're here.
Special guests in the building.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate
All right,
you
Steve,
stopping
happy
by,
birthday.
Steve. Happy birthday again.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
One of the biggest defensive
That's a good
legends.
surprise.
That's a great surprise. And look, he handed the mic back to Suze.
He's a gentleman.
You guys see, I love that because you have a big defensive presence here, and to have him walking around the building, a lot of the players really do feed off of that when they see a man like Steve Atwater and what he's done on the field and off the field. But his Hall of Fame career speaks for itself, so I think that's also added motivation for this team.
Definitely. But yeah, you're 5-3. You went 3-1. Chance here. Like I said, you're fifth in the AFC playoff standings. Can you find a way to get 5 more wins as the year goes along? That's probably that 10 win has always been what teams need to get to. It's not saying that 9 it's impossible to get in the playoffs, but when you get to 10, it's a pretty sure thing that you're going to get in this playoff field with 7 teams. So got to take it 1 week at a time. I will say, if you can find a way to beat a Baltimore or a Kansas City the next 2 weeks, you're going to send a message. You're not only going to help your
It's a strong
playoff
message.
Yeah, it not just helps your playoff chances, but sends a message that you're the real deal and you can compete this year. So excited to see what that's all about. Suze, you got any parting wisdom for us, parting thoughts?
Yeah.
Can't put me on the spot
All
like
right.
that.
Well, okay, we'll give her 2 seconds because I do want to read this stat. Shout out to our Broncos social team because they said this is the 8th straight game holding our opponents to less than 350 yards, the longest streak since 2003. And the defense produced 2 interceptions, 2 sacks, and 6 tackles for loss.
Good job, defense. You're going to need to play that well against Lamar, if not better. You're going to need to bring it.
Adam Troutman had big words for the defense. He's like, this is the best defense in the league. He's like, I don't know the rankings. I don't need to see the rankings, but to me, this is the best defense in the league. And he's like, and honestly, like, it's great to have a defense help pick you up. He's like, but we're also striving to be at the level that they're playing at. He's like, because once, we're able to really fire on all cylinders, teams are really going to have a hard time beating the Broncos. So I thought that was a strong statement from the tight end, really kind of having each other's back. But that's something we've talked about, the way that this team has really been rallying around each other and supporting each other regardless of the opponent or the outcome of these games. But Suze, I'm going to hand it over to you. I try to buy you some time with my rambling.
Over the next 2 weeks, they face quarterbacks with a combined 4 MVP awards.
Oof.
So defense better be ready to go.
Defense is going to be ready to go.
All right, Suze, what are your
got?
closing
we rambled
thoughts?
for you.
Lean forward, talking to the mic.
My closing thoughts are, I think the energy's good, the mindset's good, not being satisfied after still having a good home win. I think that's the energy that you need going into the next 2 weeks, and I'm excited to see what they do.
Oh, so nice. Good job, Suze.
That's
Wow.
straight as
Thank you for welcoming me.
You get a. We're really proud. We're really proud of that. Suze should come on the podcast more.
Yeah, I'm going to just hang out and not do anything. Suze can do it.
Suze can be our fact checker. So if you say something, I'm just look at her and we'll see if it's right.
I will happily accept that role.
The key whenever you say something is to say, I think, because then even if it's wrong, you're not saying that's true. You're saying you think that. Like, I think they're facing 2 quarterbacks with a combined 4 MVPs. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying I think that. That's the key.
Well, I think I enjoyed being a special guest today.
Oh.
Oh, she said she was a special guest.
She is a special
really
guest.
elevated herself from guest to special guest.
All right, this is falling off the rails. So again, shout out to everyone for listening and watching another episode of Altitude Advantage. Again, I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table from me is our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. And because he introduced our special guest, I'm going to hand it over for you to close the show by finishing off with Susan's title.
For everybody out there, our great digital content contributor, Susanna Weir. And Steve.